Monsters who can modify their levels are fairly common, although usually they kinda suck, but in this list we'll be going over the best of the cards who have this kind of effect. And at number 10, we have Excel Synchron. Excel Synchron is a level 5 synchro tuner monster with generic materials, and has the effect where once per turn you can send one Synchron monster from your deck to the graveyard to either raise this card's level or lower it by the level the monster sent. Also, Excel Synchron has the usual synchro tuner monster effect, allowing you to synchro summon using Excel Synchron during your opponent's turn. Now, the first effect allows you to mill any Synchron monster, including cards like Jet Synchron for an easy tuner monster summon, or at least that would have been until Jet Synchron was banned. And the other good target, Cyberse Synchron, to give your monster an extra monster zone, some protection to one destruction effect, along with also raising Excel Synchron's level for synchro plays, which are excellent benefits to Excel Synchron's first effect. And Excel Synchron being a synchro tuner, it becomes more valuable with more cards like shooting Quasar Dragon. Quasar is a level 12 synchro monster with its first effect being able to negate anything and destroy whatever it negates, along with having a minimum of 2 attacks and floating into another good card called Shooting Star Dragon, which led to any deck that's able to turbo out Quasar to see some competitive play back in the day. Quasar's one main restriction was the hard summoning condition, which was one tuner synchro monster plus 2 or more non-tuner synchro monsters. So 3 synchro monsters required to bring out this other synchro monster. Although with cards such as Formula Synchron, it wasn't impossible to summon, and the effect was definitely worth the effort needed. Even if Excel Synchron was a great option to go into Quasar, the reason it didn't really see play was due to the fact that Quasar already had Formula Synchron being the perfect combination, because Formula Synchron was level 2, meaning 2 more level 5 synchro monsters plus Formula Synchron would become a Quasar. Along with Formula Synchron having a wonderful draw effect on its summon, which gave an added bonus to just using Formula Synchron instead of anything else. As well with Excel Synchron being released a few years too late for Quasar decks. Although Excel Synchron did end up seeing play in later variants of those decks alongside other powerful synchro monsters like TG Hybrid Librarian. Excel Synchron is an okay card, just slightly overshadowed by other synchro tuner monsters, but it is good enough to take the number 10 spot on our list, surprisingly enough. And at number 9, we have Qliphort Stealth. This is a level 8 pendulum monster with the monster effect that you can normal summon this card without tributing, and if it's summoned this way, it becomes level 4 and has 1800 attack. Along with, if this card is normal summon, this card gains immunity to all monster effects of monsters that have a lower level than itself. When tribute summoned using a Qli monster, you can target and bounce one card on the field. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation, which makes this effect extremely useful. Spell speed 4 bouncing of any card is incredibly strong, even if it requires you to do 2 tributes, since it can't be negated or avoided in almost any way. Qliphort Stealth is part of the Qli archetype, which is an immensely powerful pendulum archetype that has multiple monsters with some strong immunity effects, which is why multiple of the monsters are high-level monsters and the immunity effects is restricted to when the card is normal summoned. Although, with most of the Qli archetype being pendulum monsters, that allowed monsters to be tribute summoned with extreme consistency due to being able to pendulum summon however many monsters you needed, and then just tribute them away. Qliphort Stealth's pendulum effect is effectively useless, although the summoning restriction was meant to make Qli monsters harder to use, even if locking you down to its own archetype didn't matter much at all, considering how strong said cards were in the first place. The reason Qliphort Stealth stopped seeing as much play is due to how the immunity effect just doesn't work with Link monsters, and with how Link monsters see play in almost every single deck, that single-handedly kind of killed the entire archetype. That and of course Master Rule 4, which heavily nerfed pendulums on a whole. And at number 8, we have FA Dawn Dragster. Dawn Dragster is a generic level 7 synchro monster with 0 attack and 2200 defense and 4 effects. Dawn Dragster both gains 300 attack per level, can inflict piercing battle damage, along with having the third effect to gain 1 level for each FA spell or trap card activated, and the final effect that once per turn when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you can reduce Dawn Dragster's level by 2 to negate and destroy that card. While the first effects are good and allows Dawn Dragster to have 2100 attack on summon, the real meat and bones of the card are that strong negation, and the generic materials for its summon, which are the reasons why Dawn Dragster has seen quite a bit of competitive play. The FA archetype itself is all about level modulation and field spell cards. Although they aren't really that good, they kinda hit out of the park with this one card. As mentioned with the number 10 spot, with Shooting Quasar Dragon, if a deck will summon 3 synchro monsters to have an Omni negate, A generic level 7 synchro monster who negates spells and traps should be an auto-include in any synchro deck, especially with how almost every deck uses spell cards that are necessary to function, so being able to negate those is pretty good, which led to Dragster seeing a ton of play in the past. Although with how monster effect heavy most decks are nowadays, that means not every deck is fragile to FA Dragster's negation effect, but it just being an option against any deck is incredibly powerful. Back before the card Destrudo was banned, it was one of the best ways to make Dragster, due to Destrudo allowing you to turn any level 6 or lower monster into an FA Dragster with ease. And at number 7, we have Inzektor Ladybug. Ladybug is a level 2 insect type monster with 500 attack. Inzektors are an archetype all about equipping each other to each other, and all the level 4 or lower Inzektor monsters have an effect to equip another Inzektor from your hand or graveyard to them on a soft once per turn. The unique effect for Ladybug is that when Ladybug is equipped to another monster, you raise that monster's level by 2, and it gains the attack and defense of Ladybug, and the final effect is you can unequip Ladybug from a target in order to increase its levels by 1 to 2. Due to barely any Inzektor monster's effects being once per turn, you can activate cards like Inzektor Centipede to search another Inzektor, including itself, and Inzektor Dragonfly to summon another Inzektor directly from your deck, except itself, which allows for long combo chains that lead to tons of card advantage. Ladybug falls into this combo due to being able to send itself to the graveyard, which procs both of those cards' effects. And while the card Inzektor Hornet is technically stronger, due to having the same effect, but being able to target and destroy a card when it sends itself to the graveyard, considering that Hornet was limited on the ban list for quite a few years, Inzektor Ladybug took the honorary role of the most used Inzektor equip until Hornet came off that list. Along with their archetypal link monster, Inzektor Picofalena, allowing you to discard one card to equip one Inzektor from your deck to an Inzektor on the field, which gives even more versatility to the Inzektor loops. Although, even with how insanely powerful Inzektor Dragonfly is, with its non-once per turn special summon from the deck, the Inzektor archetype kind of suffers from just how fragile all of its combos are. They lose almost immediately to any form of disruption. And back when they were meta relevant, the only dangerous hand trap they had to worry about was Effect Veiler. In the modern meta with way more dangerous hand traps, they're just a tiny bit too easy to stop their combos in their tracks. And funny enough, in Duel Links, Inzektors are almost at full power, with none of their cards restricted, and the only card missing from their archetype being their Link monster. And even in Duel Links, they don't really see competitive success. And that's because Duel Links has a lot of disruption as well, plus the 3-zone limit really restricts how much you can really accomplish with Dragonfly. Although even with its complete lack of current success, it did have tons of success in the past, and Inzektor Ladybug absolutely contributed to it, which is why it's on this list. And at number 6, we have Infernoid Decatron. This is a level 1 tuner monster with the effect that when summoned you can mill any Infernoid monster from your deck to the graveyard except itself, and it increases this card's level by the level the monster sent, along with Decatron copying said monster's name and effect permanently. Decatron is the only tuner of the Infernoid archetype, an archetype which are all about special summoning themselves from the graveyard via banishing each other, which leads to Decatron being extremely versatile as a tool to mill any specific Infernoid you need at the moment, such as milling Infernoid Patrulea in order to pop one spell trap card before you start the rest of your combos. Along with being a level 1 tuner monster, so it's summonable from the deck with cards like 1-for-1, which due to the discard effect of 1-for-1 does allow you to set up your graveyard while searching out Decatron. The entire Infernoid archetype is the biggest examples of decks using the graveyard as a second hand, and they have 2 excellent boss monsters which both benefit from having a big graveyard and help set it up. Infernoid Deviati and Infernoid Tiara. With Infernoid Deviati being able to summon itself from the graveyard and destroy all spell traps on the field, and tribute one monster in order to negate any monster effect, then banish the monster who activated it. And Infernoid Tiara, which has the effect based on the number of Infernoid monsters used for its summon. For 3 materials, each player mills 3 cards from their extra deck to the graveyard. For 5 or more, each player mills the top 3 cards of their deck to the graveyard. For 8 or more, each player returns 3 of their banished cards to the graveyard. And for 10 or more, each player sends their entire hand to the graveyard. You may think how insanely strong that effect is, that surely the 10 material cost would have made it too restrictive to activate. And well, not really. Thanks to the continuous spell card, Void Imagination, Tiara became way easier to summon, due to Void Imagination acting as a polymerization when activated, but if your opponent controls a monster that was summoned from the extra deck, you can use 6 monsters from your deck as fusion materials. meaning you only need 4 Infernoids in your hand or on the field in order to get the full benefits from Tiara. Or just use it like how most Infernoids play and just use the first 2 effects of milling both you and your opponent's decks and extra decks. And since you can mill your own extra deck, you could just send 3 copies of Elder Entity Tisk to the graveyard to target and pop 3 cards in the field while removing some of your opponent's key resources. That allowed Infernoid decks to see actual competitive success, due to the power of Devyati, Tiara, and how cards such as That Grass Looks Greener and Monster Gate could mill multiple cards from your deck to the graveyard to give you way more summons for stronger Infernoids. Or at least that would have been fine until That Grass Looks Greener got banned. But even today, Infernoid still sees some competitive success, and is one of the longest living rogue decks that never seems to be bad in any format. And at number 5, we have Uni-Zombie. Uni-Zombie is a level 3 tuner monster with the effect that you can target one face-up monster in the field and discard 1 card. Then increase that monster's level by 1. Uni-Zombie also has the effect where you can target 1 monster in the field, lock your entire board from attacking besides zombie monsters, then you can send 1 zombie-type monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then increase that target's level by 1. Now, just like Infernoids, the zombie-type monster entirely revolves around the graveyard for obvious reasons. From the insanely strong Mezuki being able to banish itself to summon any other zombie from your graveyard, or Doom King Ballardroch being able to summon itself from the graveyard during each standby phase, and having a monster negate, as long as you have Zombie World out. Uni-Zombie is a powerhouse in those decks due to both being a tuner, so it can set up Crystron Hauki Fibrax combos, but also because of how Uni-Zombie can be summoned from the graveyard via cards like Mezuki or Zombie Master, which makes Uni-Zombie a great card to mill to the graveyard for cards like Gozuki. Uni-Zombie also is useful to send card Glow Up Bloom to the graveyard in order to add any level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand, or if you have Zombie Roll on the field, you can special summon said monster, which adds a lot of utility to using Uni-Zombie in pure zombie decks. Uni-Zombie is also incredibly useful as a 1-card level 8 synchro monster, due to the monster Shiranui Solitaire. Now, if you summon Solitaire, you can use its effect to tribute itself to summon Uni-Zombie from the deck. Then mill Mezuki with Uni-Zombie to raise Uni-Zombie's level to 4, which allows you to summon Shiranui Solitaire back from the graveyard by banishing Mezuki. Then you'll have a level 4 Uni-Zombie and a level 4 Solitaire, which allows you to go into Psyframe Lorg Omega, to quick effect rip a card from your opponent's hand, along with more importantly in zombie decks, being able to reset Mezuki to the graveyard during your opponent's standby phase. And this combo did actually see a lot of competitive play in many different zombie decks in the past. And at number 4, we have Tragoedia. Tragoedia is a level 10 fiend monster with the effect that if you take battle damage, you can summon Tragoedia from your hand. And it gains 600 attack and defense for each card in your hand, along with having the effect that you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to target and steal 1 monster your opponent controls that has the same level as the monster you discarded. Along with the third and final effect that you can target 1 monster in your graveyard and change Tragoedia's level to be the same as that monster's until the end phase. And both of these effects are a soft once per turn. Tragoedia was a pretty strong card for a multitude of reasons. From the free special summon when you take battle damage, which isn't restricted to your opponent's turn, meaning you could crash one of your monsters into your opponent's stronger monster, then during your main phase 2 you could steal said monster if you had a card in your hand at the same level. Along with having the attack gain effect similar to Slifer the Sky Dragon, which means that if you had 5 cards in your hand, Tragoedia is a 3000 attack monster, which can steal almost any monster, which gives Tragoedia a lot of utility. And the third effect is also good, and the reason why it's on this list. The level modulation effect was very versatile, due to giving you easy ways to summon either a high-level Synchro or high-level Xyz monsters, which made Tragoedia incredibly versatile to many decks. The special summon effect is also useful during your opponent's turn in the same way cards like Battle Fader were useful, where you try to maybe stall out your opponent's battle phase by using Tragoedia as a body on the board, and hopefully it has big enough stats so that it can survive, and if not, it eats 1 more attack. Although, while its effects are pretty strong, it does have a few issues. First off, the effect to steal a monster is pretty restrictive. Other cards which can steal monsters, like Change of Heart, are powerful due to being able to steal any monster without requiring you to discard other cards of the same level. Although, Tragoedia's steal effect is permanent, so the restrictions do make sense. As previously mentioned, Tragoedia saw most of its play for the same reasons cards like Battle Fader saw play. And also due to how any monster with an easy summoning condition was pretty valuable, it could be used as Synchro or Xyz materials. In fact, Tragoedia was so strong it ended up on the limited and semi-limited list for years during the late Synchro and early XE's era. The only reason it came off the list was due to how Tragoedia was never insanely strong, so as the game sped up, the utility of Tragoedia just kept falling. The final nail in the coffin was the creation of Link monsters. Due to Link monsters not having levels at all, and its gimmick of being an easy to summon high-level monster that could adjust its level on the fly, just not really mattering as much anymore in the Link era. And at number 3, we have Diviner of the Herald. This is a level 2 tuner monster who has the effect that when you summon it, you can send one fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. And if you do, raise this card's level by that monster's level into the end phase. And if you tribute Diviner of the Herald, you can special summon one level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or deck, except itself. And each of these effects are a hard once per turn. Now, the first effect is incredibly strong due to how many powerful fairy monsters you can send to the graveyard, such as Elder Entity Natis to pop a card on the field. And due to the Herald archetype being a ritual archetype, that leads to Diviner being one of the first monsters on this list who will have a level changing effect that actually matters. Diviner the Herald generally sees play in Drytron decks, due to being able to send the card Herald of Arclight to the graveyard to add any ritual monster or ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. And due to Herald of the Arclight being a level 4 monster, Diviner the Herald raises its level to 6, which allows you to go into rank 6 XC's monsters. And also just gives a big consistency boost to ritual decks as a whole. Diviner the Herald is a powerful card, but is only being out by the next 2 cards being insanely strong. At number 2, we have Destrudo, the Lost Dragon's Frisson. Destrudo is a level 7 dragon tuner monster, who happens to be the only card in the game of that combination. And Destrudo has one effect. If it's in your hand or graveyard, you can pay half your life points to target one level 6 or lower monster on the field. Special summon Destrudo, then reduce its level by the level of the targeted monster. And if Destrudo leaves the field, you can place it on the bottom of your deck. And this effect is a hard once per turn. Now, if this effect may seem a tad strong, that's because it both activates from the hand and graveyard. So, milling it with cards like Foolish Burial or Dragon Shrine allows you to summon it if you have one monster in the field, and then immediately go into a synchro or link monster. And with how Destrudo summons from the hand as well, it's never a brick. The number of decks that Destrudo works with are too numerous to mention, but the decks which saw a heavy competitive play with the card would be Spirals, ABC Dragon Busters, Zephyra, Burning Abyss, Orcus, Thunder Dragons, Crusadia, and many, many more. Now, that list isn't that long, but it's a splashable card, basically. And Destrudo was even part of a consistent Tier 0 deck, and was one of the most used cards in 2 very strong decks of the past, of Orcus and Dragon Link, due to both decks having multiple ways to mill a monster from your deck to the graveyard, being Dark Grepher and Dragon Ravine respectively, which gave you searchable ways to mill Destrudo and continue your plays. Also, if you use a level 6 or lower monster to summon Destrudo, just bringing the card out with its normal procedure, you can summon the card F.A. Don Dragster, which as previously mentioned is an easy spell or trap card to get on the board. Destrudo is a really strong card, and the only reason it's not number 1 on this list is purely because the next spot is just more broken. And at number 1, we have Level Eater. Level Eater is a level 1 insect type monster with the effect that, if Level Eater is in your graveyard, you can target one level 5 or higher monster you control, and lower its level by 1 to special summon Level Eater. And this card cannot be tributed except for a tribute summon. Now, you may have noticed one thing, or rather the lack of one thing, that this monster has no once per turn on that special summon condition. Meaning, if you can continuously bring out a level 5 or higher monster, or even just bring out a very high level monster, you can special summon Level Eater as much as you like with no restrictions, as long as you have a way to use it on the field. Now, the effect actually wasn't that powerful back in older formats, due to there being very few ways to actually use and abuse the effect, since you couldn't tribute it for a Cannon Soldier FTK because of the tribute summon restriction. It just kind of existed as a strong card in the game for multiple years without any issues, until one small change caused Level Eater to be banned almost overnight. Once the Link summoning mechanic was revealed, Level Eater was way too strong with this new mechanic, and it was only a matter of time before it was banned. And as soon as they announced Link Rebo, Level Eater was banned as a precaution right before its release, as you had multiple ways to facilitate the combos, like using Mathematician or Curious to send Level Eater to the graveyard, use Where Art Thou to add Level Eater to your hand and discard it with a discard effect, or just use 1-for-1 to get it out directly from the deck. The possible ways to use Level Eater were almost infinite, which is why no one was surprised when the card was banned in 2018. Level Eater is a powerful card, only made more powerful as time went on. and unless it gets a hard once per turn restriction on its effect, Level Eater will almost permanently stay banned, which is why Level Eater takes #1 spot on this list. Alright, and that's the list. If you think there's any other level modulating monsters that should have been mentioned on this list, or have any ideas for future videos just like this one, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments.